Betsy not only understands all the strengths and weaknesses of medical librarians, but doctors and NIH scientists, plus the peculiar behavior of organizations. But she handles all of them with grace and intelligence. That's pretty hard to beat.
Betsy Lamson took her opening bow with the other flowers of spring on April 27, 1947, at Lowell General Hospital, Lowell, Massachusetts. Growing up, Betsy, her older sister Fay, younger brother Peter, and Mom and Dad lived in the classic New England town of Westford, Mass. Betsy's dad, Weatherby Pete Lamson, was a life insurance underwriter, World War II vet, highly ranked amateur golfer, and excellent tennis player and skier. Mom, Lucy Hawks Lamson, was a competitive skier and also played tennis and golf. When Betsy was 14, tragedy put its indelible stamp on her young life. You see, her father Pete, who was battling Guillain-Barré syndrome, suddenly caught pneumonia and died. That was 1961. As a child, Betsy loved to read, and that addiction resulted in her spending a good deal of time in the library, which helped influence her career path.
I loved the library in my town. I actually worked there when I was a kid. And libraries occurred to me as something that I loved and had gotten great benefit from.
Betsy spent 3 months in Italy between her junior and senior years in high school. She was an American Field Service student and the only AFS student that summer of 1964 in the town of Reggio di Calabria, which is at the tip of the toe of the boot, and where very few people spoke English.
And I sort of said to myself, hey, well, if you can manage this all in another country in another language, then maybe you can manage your own life back home pretty well.
The experience also taught her that there's more than one way to do everything.
And the way we do things in the United States, or our views of things, are not the only way to view things, and they're not the only legitimate ways to view things.
In 1965, Betsy headed off to Smith College. A career path had not yet firmed up, but she valued the liberal arts education she was pursuing.
And I didn't at all feel that I had to learn some specific thing that would be the basis for a career. I did have the view, if you've had a lot of practice thinking and writing, then that's good preparation for any career.
Betsy's undergraduate years at Smith led directly to graduate studies at the University of Maryland. And as Betsy was wrapping up her studies toward a Master of Library Science degree, one of her professors with previous ties to the National Library of Medicine received a serendipitous phone call.
Somebody from NLM called him up and said that they had some special projects and they wanted recent library graduates to work on them. And did he have anyone he could recommend? And I was just about to graduate at the end of December, and he said to me, would I be interested in such a job? He says, it's just a temporary thing for 700 hours. I said, sure. Thinking any experience as a professional at the National Library of Medicine would be better than the experience I had at the time, which was none, obviously. And so I was sent over to be interviewed. And as it happened, the man who interviewed me said, we're looking for someone who can think and write. And I said, hey, I could do that. So I was hired for 4 months, and that was going on 37 years ago, so.
Basically, what happened was that within days of her arrival at NLM, Betsy was told that the library had decided to fast-track the introduction of a large new data management system to clean up and manage a database of medical journal titles. And she was to be the one reviewing and editing the entries full-time.
So I started doing online editing of the records in this database management system. It's interesting, the first project I was put on essentially turned me into what we might now call a super user of the IBM 360 and a large database management system. Then I began to think that this database, which was for public use, and this database management system really would be a very good way to automate the management of the journals, serial processing, and so forth at the National Library of Medicine, which was totally manual at the time.
So Betsy and a systems analyst who was one of her early mentors at NLM came up with a design for this new database, the Master Serials System, and proposed it, Betsy making the presentation to NLM Director Martin Cummings, and lo and behold, it was reviewed and approved, and they started building it.
And this was within 2 years of me coming to the library, and I thought this was the greatest place to work in the world. I had all these fascinating things to do. I got to work with these great people.
Most clinicians and researchers have either directly or indirectly used DocLine, the NLM's interlibrary loan network, to access journal literature not contained in their local libraries. Well, DocLine is based upon SirHold, a large and complex database of journal holdings and union lists for medical libraries across the country, and Betsy was given the task of developing SirHold.
This was a formidable task, not because of the technology, which she had mastered easily, but because of the passion that the medical librarians had for the detail in their very accurate holdings lists. However, Betsy was able to use her considerable political skills that she still has to use today, to convince medical librarians of the importance of this project.
Along the way, Betsy married and divorced, but chose to keep her married name Humphreys to avoid confusion in her burgeoning library career. In 1984, Donald A.B. Lindbergh took the reins of the National Library of Medicine. The right man in the right place at the right time to enable Betsy Humphreys to spread her wings and fly. Because it was Don Lindbergh who saw the potential in Betsy's decade-plus of experience in database development and design and management, and her skill in forging interpersonal alliances to get things done.
But I had not been so directly involved with the actual biomedical content of what we dealt with, nor how NLM's products and services might be used in the arena of patient records, or what we would say now electronic health records. And it was Don's coming to NLM and starting the Unified Medical Language System that really got me into that arena.
And once embarked upon the challenges of creating the UMLS, Betsy quickly showed not only an ability, but an affinity for life in the deep end of the pool. She was clearly a comer and a talent to be reckoned with.
Well, certainly in the world of biomedical informatics, that's definitely true, and probably in general as well. And that was obviously a fantastic opportunity for me.
Without her, we would not have gotten through those years of UMLS work, where I think the weapons that she applied, again, was sort of grace and intelligence, but also a good bit of patience.
Patient, persistent, always calm, continues to work on it, and gradually it all comes together. So she's just been spectacular in her influence on vocabulary.
There was Betsy, the project officer on the government contracts for the creation of the UMLS, and the principal investigators on the contracts were a virtual who's who of the giants in the field of biomedical informatics, and coincidentally, most of them longtime friends of Don Lindbergh.
The rules and requirements around contracts are a little different. They weren't used to them. And I thought to myself, ooh, I am going to have to make this work for us and for them, and I am going to have to insulate them from as much Mickey Mouse as possible, because I'm not too interested in having them potentially calling Don about all of this rigmarole that I am putting them through. To their credit, they never did such a thing.
Betsy can always find a common ground that brings people together. I remember when the Commission on Systemic Interoperability was trying to draft its 14 recommendations. It was Betsy that found the right language.
One thing I am is very persistent. And some of the issues and problems, challenges that I've worked on, I believe have required that.
Well, the prime example is I told her when we got more and more advanced in the UMLS that she would not like working with a College of American Pathologists and that she would find it even worse than AMA, which has proved to be the case. But in both cases, she's managed to contrive a conciliatory and pacific arrangement that allowed progress to occur.
An integral tool of UMLS is the Specialist Lexicon, and it's in the UMLS because Betsy had the vision to put it in. Here's the inside scoop from Dr. Carol Friedman of Columbia University.
I drove you to the airport on my way home, and we were discussing various issues that went on in the meeting, and somehow the Specialist Lexicon that Alexa developed came up in our discussion, and I think I was going on and on about what a wonderful resource it was and how rich it was in linguistic detail and how valuable it would be for natural language processing. And right away you said, oh, I'm going to see if I can make it available to you and to the community. And in a short time, you actually made it available, and not only the Specialist Lexicon, but you also made available all the tools, the wonderful tools that went along with it.
And of course, the enduring success of the UMLS provided a solid base for Betsy's continued climb to the top at the National Library of Medicine, where since 2005 she has been Deputy Director.
Betsy was a clear voice, not only about how we could develop the UMLS, but also how that could apply to public health. And so she really has been a stalwart in moving forward the concept of public health informatics. And then to take that one step further, when I got to the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, it was partnering with Betsy about doing training for people in public health to do informatics and learn about informatics and how they can use it in their practice to improve the quality of public health services they were delivering.
I like watching her work. I just like watching her work the groups, like watching her make progress in these things. And it's such a tickle that so many things are working so well now because these were long haul activities.
Who but Betsy would have the patience and the persistence to negotiate a global license to SNOMED terminologies?
Around NLM and the broader NIH community, Betsy has always been front and center when it comes to taking part in a charitable promotion or a costumed event. It's actually quite fitting that Betsy was in her office at NLM when she learned that she was the 2009 Morris Collen Award recipient.
Joyce Mitchell, who is the president of ACME, came in to tell me she was at NLM for another meeting, and she came in and said, oh, I have some, wonderful news for you. And she told me this. I was stunned. I really was amazed. I don't know, maybe I thought one day, but I didn't think it would be that day.
Sharing in Betsy's joy are her 91-year-old mom, who still plays tennis, her older sister Faye, who has an MBA from Harvard and is an artist. Faye's work is proudly displayed on Betsy's office walls. Faye is married to David Hannon, and they have 2 sons. And Betsy's brother Peter, a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, who is a musician and songwriter, while also maintaining a day job in San Francisco and a lovingly committed relationship with Marla Bodie. The background music you're hearing now is written and performed by Peter Lamson. Having grown up in an active athletic family, Betsy finds relaxation and rejuvenation hiking, an activity she's enjoyed around the world.
It's very satisfying to, walk 6 or 8 miles and see something beautiful and know that you couldn't actually see that if you were not willing to walk the 6 or 8 miles to get there, and then the 6 or 8 miles to get back.
In addition to nourishing body and soul, Betsy found an even greater and unexpected reward from hiking: her husband Glenn.
I had decided at one point that I would try hiking and became immediately hooked on it. And within a year or so of going out with this hiking club regularly, I met Glenn. And so we share a great interest in hiking and opera and many other things. And so we met on the trail.
Betsy and Glenn share their life with Shireen, Glenn's daughter from a previous marriage, their son-in-law Mario, and granddaughters Gabriella and Olivia. As you may have guessed by now, given the overwhelming success she's achieved, Betsy has already won enough professional honors and awards to cover the horizon, including the inaugural Cornerstone Award presented by the Association of Academic Health Sciences Libraries in 2006, the 2007 Marcia Noyes Award, the highest honor bestowed by the Medical Library Association, and now the Morris Collen Award.
Betsy, your medical library colleagues from around the world congratulate you on this fantastic accomplishment.
Betsy, you're the greatest. This award is you're absolutely deserving this award, and I'm so happy that you got it. It's about time.
Wonderful choice. Couldn't have been a better choice. It really is. It's great to see her being honored for the very hard work that she's been doing.
Betsy, I want to congratulate you on this richly deserved honor. Whenever anything important happens in informatics, I know your fingers are in it somewhere.
We ought to say a word or two about Morris Collen. I mean, we all love him, and he's a pioneer in the field. He didn't have a Betsy. No telling how far much he would have accomplished if he had a Betsy.